Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're basically becoming biological detectives, grabbing our magnifying glasses and embarking on a massive evolutionary journey. We are going to decode the incredible, sometimes completely bizarre, and absolutely fascinating family tree of the Hexapoda subphylum, which, is the fancy scientific term for insects. Think about it. With literally millions of species crawling, flying, and swimming across the globe, how do scientists possibly make sense of it all? Well, today, we are going to visually map out exactly how that great sorting works.
Okay, let's dive into this. To make sense of this overwhelming swarm without getting totally lost in the weeds, we'll follow 4 clear stages. First, sorting the swarm, then we'll meet the wingless wonders, take to the skies with the early flyers, and finally, examine the advanced aviators.
Section 1. Sorting the swarm. Before we even look at the bugs themselves, we really need to appreciate the historical challenge scientists faced when trying to organize this sheer unparalleled chaos.
I mean, our understanding of insect classification didn't just happen overnight, it grew dramatically over centuries. Back in 1758, the legendary taxonomist Carl Linnaeus tried to wrangle the entire insect class into just 9 orders. 9! But as explorers discovered more of the world, that number simply couldn't hold the sheer variety of life. By 1885, Brouwer expanded it to 16 orders. Then Imms brought it up to 23 in 1925. Finally, we arrive at the modern scheme laid out by Richards and Davis in 1957. And, that scheme still serves as the foundational architecture we use today to categorize this incredible diversity. So you might be wondering, how do we make the very first split in this massive modern family tree? Interestingly enough, it all comes down to the mouth. Scientists divide the whole subphylum into 2 primary groups, ectogaphnis and endogaphnis. Now, I know those are heavy textbook terms, so let's translate. Ectogaphnis basically means their mouth parts are well developed and stick outwards from the head, like almost every normal insect you can picture. Entogaphnis creatures, on the other hand, have mouth parts retracted entirely within a little pocket inside their head. It's an absolutely fundamental anatomical divide.
Section 2. The wingless wonders. Let's transition to the very base of the evolutionary tree and look at a subclass known as Apterygoda, the primitive insects that never even evolved wings. And this brilliantly illustrates our point. Meet the silverfish from the order Zygentoma. You've probably seen these guys darting around a damp basement at some point. Notice the distinct anatomy right at the end of its abdomen. It has these long appendages called cerci and a really prominent median caudal filament right down the middle. That primitive 3-pronged tail is a total dead giveaway for these early wingless survivors. Let's look at the spec sheet for this order. They feature a prognathous head, which just means the long axis of the head is horizontal. It points straight forward, perfectly in line with the body. They have long thread-like antennae, and those projecting ectognathous mouthparts we talked about are perfectly designed for biting and chewing. This chewing equipment is exactly why they thrive in habitats like soil, rotting wood, and incredibly, even the glue and bindings of our old books. Section 3. The early flyers. We're moving up the evolutionary ladder now to the Pterygoda class, the winged insects, starting with a massive division known as Exopterygoda. Now, this definition is absolutely key to understanding the rest of this explainer. Exopterygoda refers to winged insects whose wings develop on the outside of their bodies as tiny little wing pads. As they transition from juveniles, which we call nymphs, to adults, they go through what's known as incomplete metamorphosis. That just means they molt and get slightly bigger each time, skipping that whole cocoon or pupal stage entirely. Among the most famous of these early flyers is the order Odonata, featuring your classic dragonflies and damselflies. Look at those massive heads. They're mostly covered by giant eyes and connected to the body by a super narrow, freely articulated neck. But the defining trait here is actually the wings. Both pairs are highly membranous, but because these guys are evolutionary pioneers of flight, they literally lack the ability to fold them flat against their backs. So even when resting, those wings stay rigidly unfolded. Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is the sheer physical diversity we see within a single order, Orthoptera. Just compare your standard green grasshopper, built for jumping in the open, with the heavily specialized mole cricket. Look at the mole cricket's front legs. They've evolved into these incredibly powerful, shovel-like tools perfectly adapted for digging underground, all while retaining the core traits of the Orthoptera family. It's like nature's little bulldozer. Let's decode those Orthoptera traits. Unlike our silverfish, they generally have a hypognathous head, meaning it points straight downward. Their front wings are small and leathery, acting as a protective cover called tegmina to shield the delicate flying wings underneath. But here is for sure my favorite mind-blowing fact. Grasshoppers and crickets have ears. Only they aren't on their heads. They have these hearing structures called tympanal organs located right on the side of their abdomen. Nature is wild, right? Continuing our tour of early flyers, we have the order Mentodea, beautifully represented here by the praying mantis. Similar to grasshoppers, they have those downward-pointing heads and leathery tegmina protecting their hind wings. But evolutionary adaptation gave them highly specialized forelegs. These front legs are raptorial, meaning they are perfectly engineered for grasping and holding struggling prey in a literal death grip. Here we have two more famous or perhaps notorious orders. First, Dermoptera, better known as earwigs. They're instantly recognizable by the pinchers at the end of their abdomen and their really short, truncated, leathery wings. Then we have Blattodea, the cockroaches. These are highly successful terrestrial survivors with downward-facing heads, bristle-like antennae, and sweeping, leathery tegmina covering their backs. We'll wrap up the early flyers with the order Hemiptera. Now, in everyday conversation, we call pretty much all insects bugs. But scientifically speaking, the term true bugs exclusively belongs to Hemiptera. And what defines them? Highly specialized mouthparts. They totally abandon the chewing approach for a piercing and sucking mechanism. It's basically shaped like a microscopic hypodermic needle designed to extract plant sap, or in some cases, the vital fluids of other bugs. Section 4. The Advanced Aviators. We're shifting now to the second major division of winged insects, the true, undisputed masters of adaptation. This division is called Endopteriogoda. Now, unlike the early flyers we just looked at, these insects undergo complete metamorphosis. They transition from a worm-like larva into a dormant pupal stage and emerge as completely rebuilt adults. It's like magic. The key biological marker here is that their wings develop internally during that pupal stage, instead of sprouting on the outside. And that internal development is exactly what allows for the radical transformations we see in these advanced species. A premier example of this is the order Lepidoptera, which includes all butterflies and moths. I mean, just look at the incredibly striking skull pattern on the thorax of this hawk moth. Lepidoptera are defined by two major features: highly specialized sucking mouth parts designed entirely for drawing up liquid nectar, and, most distinctly, scaly wings. If you've ever touched a moth's wing and got that dusty stuff on your fingers, you are actually rubbing off thousands of microscopic overlapping scales. Let's move to the Diptera order and see how this specialization builds. Look at the immense variation in how they feed. We have the mosquito, equipped with needle-like piercing mouthparts. Then compare that to a common true fly, which evolved completely bizarre, sponging mouthparts to just mop up liquid food. It's an amazing showcase of diverse tools for completely different survival strategies, all housed under the exact same order. But the true defining anatomical quirk of Diptera is right there in the wings. The name Diptera literally translates to 2 wings. You see, almost all flying insects have 4 wings total. Diptera, however, only have a single, functional pair of 4 wings. The hind wings didn't just vanish, though. They evolved into tiny, highly complex, club-shaped balancing organs called helters. They act like microscopic gyroscopes, making flies unbelievably agile in the air. Next up is Hymenoptera. Think bees, ants, and beautifully marked social wasps. They typically possess 2 pairs of wings, but if you look closely at a flying wasp, it usually looks like they only have 1 large pair. Well, that's because their fore and hind wings amazingly interlock during flight using rows of tiny hooks called hamuli. This zips them together into a single, powerful aerodynamic surface. We're going to end our taxonomic breakdown with the undisputed champions of diversity, the order Colilla, meaning beetles and weevils. Whether it's a massive ground beetle or a vibrant snout beetle, Colilla represents roughly 40% of all known insect species. 40%! And just looking at them, their shared secret to success is pretty obvious. They are built like little armored tanks, wrapped in heavily hardened, sclerotized body armor. And that heavy-duty armor extends right down to their wings. The key to a beetle's success is its elytra. In Coleoptera, the 4 wings completely lost their role in flying. Instead, they thickened up into tough, hard, protective shields that snap tightly over their backs. These elytra protect the delicate, highly foldable flying wings tucked safely underneath, keeping them pristine until the beetle is ready for takeoff. So what does this all mean for us? Well, it brings our biological deep dive to a close. We've traveled from Linnaeus's humble 9 orders all the way to a modern, highly detailed map based on wings, mouthparts, and metamorphosis. But it leaves us with a thrilling question. With such immense diversity mapped out just by anatomical traits, how many more insects are out there waiting to be discovered? And as we push further into the age of rapid DNA sequencing, how will modern genetics completely redraw this ancient family tree? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes open the next time you step outside, and as always, keep learning.